What's up, Archons? I'm Flightless Pheasant, and now that you're here, it's time to reveal our fate just as the prophecy has foretold and see what the future has in store. Or, I suppose in this case, the past. But before we do, I'm a huge fan of KeyForge, and if you are too, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell, as I'll be bringing you even more lore from KeyForge and the Crucible. Today, I'm going to be taking you through some of my favorite lore bits and some of my least favorite lore bits from the recently released Prophetic Visions set. This is the most recently released core set in the KeyForge timeline, and we're going to spend a little time looking at the various references, new information, and sometimes just quirky, interesting things that we can find in this set. I'm going to start with the references, and then I'm going to spend a little time on some things that I maybe don't really like, and we'll wrap it up by talking about the new information that we have and some information we have on House Redemption. So without further ado, let's start looking at those external references. So in no particular order, I'm going to start with the card Coup de Grace. So the flavor text on Coup de Grace is "Finish him," which any of you who've played Mortal Kombat will likely recognize as the voiceover announcement right before you do a major finishing move. The next one on my list is Hazard Zerp. Now, I've not played any of the Final Fantasy games, but I feel like I can recognize a Final Fantasy-inspired character when I see one. I mean, big hair, big sword, kind of a dead giveaway, right? I don't know, maybe I'm wrong on this one, but I have a feeling that this is actually correct. Next up, we have Driving Courage, the flavor text of which is "I can do this all day," which is a reference to the MCU's Captain America, who says that quote a couple of times in the series, although my absolute favorite time is when they, in Hawkeye, go to the musical version and the actor is singing it out into the audience. Anyway, if you haven't seen it, it's really fun, but yeah, that's definitely where this quote comes from. Next up, I have Vesuvius Dome. Now, I'm pretty sure this is referencing the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in the year 79 CE. That eruption was so sudden and unexpected that a whole bunch of people actually got covered in ash and basically like mummified or petrified. It's really, really interesting. If you haven't looked into it, it's one of the more interesting events in that time in history. But given the connection between House Saurian and like ancient Rome, I'm pretty sure this is what is meant to be referenced here. Next up, we have Chummy. The flavor text on this card says, "You call that a knife?" Which is a really fun reference to a movie called Crocodile Dundee, which was a movie about an Australian guy who visits New York. And anyway, it's a really interesting and fun scene. If you haven't seen the movie, you should definitely watch it. But yeah, that's where this one comes from. So next up on my list is Bridge Officer Yarrow. So the quote on Bridge Officer Yarrow says, "It is possible to commit no mistakes and still lose. That's not weakness, that's life." Which is an excellent quote from Jean-Luc Picard, which is the captain character from Star Trek The Next Generation. One of many excellent quotes. If you watch the series for no other reason, watch it for the incredible quotes that you can get from Jean-Luc Picard. And the last external reference I was able to catch is on Recovery Operation. It says, "In and out, 20-minute mission." Which is a reference to one of the funnier moments in a Rick and Morty episode, where Rick says this to Morty, and then the mission goes horribly wrong, and it takes forever, and they reveal that it's been like weeks, and they're just completely ragged and all upset. Like, it foreshadows this mission does not go well, which I think is really nice. Okay, so with the external references dealt with, it's now time to look at the internal references. That is to say, cards that reference other cards in KeyForge, which this set actually has quite a few of. But one of my absolute favorite, and the one we're going to start with, is Duck, Duck, Superb Duck, which is a reference to Eureka. In fact, it's such a direct reference that Eureka is even the flavor text on Duck, Duck, Superb Duck. Also in Logos, I was able to spot that Mercurial Wormhole's art is very similar to Wild Wormhole's art, and given that the two cards have very similar effects, this isn't really surprising. But it does look like Mercurial Wormhole takes place after Wild Wormhole, as the flavor text on Mercurial Wormhole indicates that it is the second time this kind of anomaly has appeared. The next card on my list is Break of Dawn, the artwork of which depicts a number of Lumilu surrounding what appears to be a witch character. At first, I thought this might be Mercy Malkin Queen, but she's got very different hair color and kind of a different aesthetic, so I don't know if this is a witch we've seen before or not. I wasn't able to completely ID her, but Either way, there's definitely a connection to the Lumalus on this card. And then we have Chonk Evermore, a card that clearly depicts the creature Chonkers. Apparently he's still alive, running around collecting his power counters in order to become a truly terrifying force on the Crucible. Maybe. Next up, we have the creature Mog, who finally answers the question, what is Mog Hunter actually hunting? Apparently, this big wolf type thing, which I understand would be a pretty dangerous prey to be going after. And the last card I have in this category is probably the funniest. It's Prince Bufo, who seems to be enjoying his new life as a frog, which he almost certainly got turned into by Xenos Blood Shadow, a character we know to be dead at this point, as they've been reincarnated as Xenos Dark Shadow, but before their death, they really did like turning people into toads, and it looks like Prince Bufo is one of those hapless victims, but he seems to be making the best of it. So this is normally the part of the video where I'd be talking about interesting things from the newest house, but Redemption is not really a new house at this point, so I'm actually going to save them till the end because I do have things I want to say about them, but I think that's better saved for later. Which means I'm actually going to move into my lore fails section. This time around, there's kind of a lot of them, but also kind of not a lot of them. I really don't want to make this video a long rant about things I don't like about Redemption, but I feel like I should at least bring up some points. And in the lore fail section, I'm really confused about the existence of 3 cards in House Redemption. Those are Follow the Leader, Corrode, and Stampede. I don't understand what these cards are doing here. They weren't taken from House Sanctum, they're not mutants, they're not even mutant specific, they just feel like they were randomly selected, like somebody threw a dart at a dartboard and said, yeah, sure, those actions, why not? Like, Stampede in particular is just a terrible action that basically sees no play, so, like, why even include it? I don't know, it just feels like maybe you could have at least come up with original versions so that the flavor texts aren't wrong? I don't know, this just reads to me as a lore fail. The next lore fail I have is admittedly kind of a nitpick, but it does bother me a little, so I thought I'd include it, and that's Cursed Loot. So, Cursed Loot doesn't have the curse trait, like the curses from previous sets. I don't see why not. It's literally called Cursed Loot. Why wouldn't it be a curse? You can even see, like, the cursed hand coming out of the bag. I don't know, it seems like a really obvious miss to me, but I guess it's kind of a nitpick because it's not, like, really wrong per se, it just feels like an oversight. And the last lore fail I have is, as always, the most egregious, and this is on Mickey the Carver. So Mickey the Carver has the human trait. Take a minute to look at the art of this card. Just absorb it for a second. There are 2 characters depicted here. Both of them are pretty clearly Svar elves. Not a human anywhere in sight. Now, this could be an error that they forgot to fix, but it's still a problem because it means Mickey will not follow any elf themes that come later. He'll follow any human themes that come later, and well, he's pretty clearly not a human. I don't know, this one seems like you really should have caught it in the review process, but here we are. Okay, let's cleanse our palate of the negativity for now by focusing on a card that is actually one of my absolute favorite lore-centric cards that I've seen in a very, very long time. Just the art, the flavor text, the name, it all goes together so well. And that is the card Eye for an Eye. So Eye for an Eye's flavor text indicates that it's talking about eyes. I mean, like, the name looks like it should be read like Ifrani, but when you read the flavor text and it says the worst part is it doesn't even have any eyes, you go, oh, it's Eye for an Eye. Like, you know, an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. I don't know, this is just super cool. Like, the art's good, the flavor text is good, the effect is flavorful, the name is great. This one's just excellent. Well done, Ghost Galaxy. This one deserves, like, a round of applause. Okay, so now we're going to move on to a section where I talk about creatures with interesting traits. Sometimes artifacts with interesting traits go in this section too. And I'm going to start this one off by going through the new recruiters that we got. So the recruiter trait is one we've seen before, and it usually comes with house enhancement pips, and it has that here too, but these recruiters are a little different. So we have Scorpion, Digitalia, Salve, Brigadier Olms, Archlegate Valeria, Bandit Culver, Silitate, and Vivid Fairy. So unlike the last set of recruiters, these guys seem to give you value for having neighbors that match their house, which is true for most of them. Silitate and Bandit Culver are a little bit different in that they don't specifically care about neighbors, but they do still care about cards from their house. And these are the first recruiters for several of these houses. So I still like the recruiter keyword, or trait. I think it's going to be very interesting to keep an eye on these moving forward. So the next creature with a trait I want to call attention to is Captain Chaw. So his flavor text says, "I assure you, my organs are organic." But they're not. I mean, his trait is robot, and, like, he's stealing when he reaps. He's clearly, like, infiltrating the organic world as a machine. I don't know, I just think that's a really cool thing to point out, and it makes his flavor text funnier when you actually read the trait and realize, no, you don't have organic organs. So on the flip side of that coin, we have another Logos creature that feels like he probably should have the robot trait, but ended up with human instead. This is Ametrius Darn, and while we have seen humans in Logos with very robotic parts, see Vellum and Hide, we've never seen one that looks quite this completely robotic get the human trait. I don't know if this is an oversight or it's meant to be like a cheeky joke of some kind, but still, I don't know. It's interesting to point out. Maybe this is an accident and it should be under the lore fail category, but again, Logos having very robotic looking humans isn't completely new. This is just a new extreme for that to go to. So the next card with interesting traits is Azrael in House Redemption. This creature is interesting for two reasons. First of all, it's the first angel we've seen in House Redemption, which implies that there are some of them who did side with House Redemption during the Schism. And it also has the mutant trait, which is possibly more concerning because it implies that angels can be afflicted with Dark Amber mutation, which is deeply troubling since angels are one of the more powerful creatures on the Crucible, and it really speaks to just how potent the Dark Amber mutation has to be. And the last card with an interesting trait I want to talk about is Resonant Orb. So Resonant Orb has the Spirit trait, which is kind of interesting because it's one of only two creatures to have the Spirit trait and not appear in House Sanctum. The other one being Operations Officer Yissi. But Operations Officer Yissi looks more like a traditional Sanctum spirit, some sort of energy being encased in armor to give it physical form. Whereas Resonant Orb seems to have decided not to use some kind of armor to contain itself and just exists as a floating mote of light. This brings up some questions about whether or not spirits can appear in other houses or exactly how spirits work in KeyForge, but at least we know that they can theoretically just manifest as motes of energy that move around the Crucible, which is more information than we had before. Speaking of more information than we had before, I think it's time to talk about new and interesting information that we can glean from the cards in Prophetic Visions. The first I want to call attention to is Divine Seal. So Divine Seal actually shows Sanctum using sealing magic. We know that they have this from cards like Open the Seal in previous sets, but this is the first time we've seen them actually using it on card art, which is super interesting. I mean, you can see the runic projections coming out around the seal. You have to assume that a more powerful seal would probably require more knights or monks or priests to be involved, but still, it's interesting to actually get to look at Sanctum sealing magic as it's happening. Speaking of things we knew existed but rarely see on card art, Paleogene Society shows members of House Saurian around a large projection 3D model of some kind. This is a very advanced piece of technology that doesn't match their general ancient Roman aesthetic. And while we know that House Saurian has access to incredibly advanced technology, most of that technology pretends to be a lot more rudimentary. So it's always interesting to see House Saurian using something that's definitely sci-fi in aesthetic. So the next thing I want to call attention to is something that kind of makes sense if you think about it, but that we haven't actually seen depicted, I don't think, but maybe we have. So, Cosmic Recompense shows a clearly Star Alliance type spacefaring vessel attempting to travel through space, which probably means that this calamity that we're seeing happening around the ship is actually a result of the Great Boundary, the invisible barrier that keeps everyone from being able to leave the Crucible even if they have spacefaring vessels. So it's possible what we're seeing here is maybe Star Alliance's first encounter with that boundary. So the last thing I want to cover in this section is also kind of a segue into talking about House Redemption. And that is that there are a number of objects that were previously in House Redemption that have now come back to House Sanctum. House Sanctum had them, then Redemption took them, and now Sanctum seems to have them back. These objects are the Mantle of the Zealot, the Promised Blade, and the Book of Malefaction. So you can see here they are as House Sanctum, and here they are as House Redemption. What's interesting to me is, because Sanctum and Redemption are so very much at odds, I don't understand how Sanctum got these things back from Redemption. Like, did Redemption steal them from the Reliquary and then say, no, actually, we don't need it, you can have it back? Or did Sanctum make a raid on Redemption to get back their artifacts? Like, Mantle of the Zealot might be a somewhat common item that you could have multiples of, but the Promised Blade and the Book of Malefaction are both, like, unique named objects. So I just don't understand how Sanctum got them back. Like, did it happen off screen? Was there, like, a prisoner exchange of artifacts or something? I don't know. This just feels weird and wrong, and it's not really addressed anywhere that I've been able to find, so I'm not sure what's happening here, but it does feel really strange. Okay, so when it comes to House Redemption and Prophetic Visions, I have some notes. In particular, they just don't feel like the same Redemption we were introduced to in Tokens of Change. As an example, there are now several cards that depict House Redemption intentionally spreading the Dark Amber mutation that supposedly they're trying to eradicate. In particular, these cards are Vial of Mutation, The Mist, and Fallen Sovereign, all of which increase the number of mutants in play for really no explicable reason. I mean, it just feels very counter to their purpose. Compounding this feeling that the house has changed in some fundamental way, there's also a very large number of cards that reward you for having mutants or give you bonuses for the mutants entering play, like Agamingus, Corrosive Monk, Genetic Strain, Heed the Horde, Vault's Blessing, and Vial of Mutation again, all just giving you benefit for having mutants. Which doesn't feel right. It feels like Redemption should still be focused primarily on removing mutants from the board, not getting benefit for having lots of them. I don't know, something here just feels really off. All that said, there are several Redemption cards that do feel like they fit with the old themes that we had from the previous iteration of Redemption. Things like Dark Influence, which rewards you for mutants entering the discard pile. Groland, who outright kills mutants. Rack of Redemption, which gives you benefit for mutants dying. And even Redeem the Crucible, which shows the incredible lengths that House Redemption is willing to go to in order to purge Dark Amber mutants. But these seem to be the minority of cards this time around, and it really gets the gears turning about what is happening inside of House Redemption that has caused this shift from purging mutants to creating more and gaining benefit for having them. Well, to that point, I have a theory. But if you want to hear it, you're going to have to go over to my Houses Redemption video, where I actually go into it in great detail. Here, I'll just leave you with a bit of a teaser as I show you the card at the center of my theory. Are you ready? This is Namel's Confession. I believe this card potentially could explain everything that's happening in House Redemption, in spite of its dramatic lack of flavor text. And if you want to see how, check out my Houses of the Crucible Redemption video. And those are all the cards that I found in Prophetic Visions that I thought were worth talking about. Some had interesting references, some had a good art, some were a little questionable, and some of them just gave us new insights. Did I miss anything that you really wanted to see? Did I show you something that you hadn't already found? How many references did I miss this time? Put your thoughts down in the comments, and I always really like doing this type of video. It lets me talk about the things behind the cards and lets us kind of dig a little bit deeper into the layers of the KeyForge universe. I do have several more videos coming up in the near future. I'm going to be trying to increase my pace a little bit because I've been kind of lagging lately, and I want to get back into a good cadence where I'm putting out several videos at a reasonable pace. So look forward to that. But as far as this video goes, that's all I have for you today. So until next time, later, Archons.